Merlin, network magic, ELK stack, building our pipeline. Hey everybody, my name is John Capobianco. I hope you just watched the previous 15-minute video about how we can bring up the Elasticsearch and Logstash and Kibana, collectively known as the ELK stack, how we can in just a few commands bring it in locally on our home computers inside of Docker Desktop as containers. Now, let me get the whiteboard out and explain what needs to happen next, now that I have this platform locally. So again, we have our PyATS as images, right? And there's a bunch of images that will go to the Nexus 9K and transform things into JSON, show commands and parsed information, which we then send through Jinja 2 and create business-ready documentation, including an HTML page. We have Apache, a web server, in this image that we present this HTML page as a microservice. What my next step is to take that JSON, not templated, well, maybe templated, we'll talk about that, and send it into Elasticsearch as JSON. Now this is known as ingesting data in the Elastic speech into indexes. So say show IP interface brief is going to become an index show IP interface brief of JavaScript data that we can search. Now, one thing is with this ingest, we want to set up what's known as a pipeline. Specifically, it can do many things, but in our case, specifically to add a timestamp to the JSON as it's coming into each index, so that our index has our JSON structure plus the timestamp that it came in. Now, in terms of the ecosystem, from our workstation, yes, we can do API calls against Elasticsearch, and we can do searches against Elasticsearch. We have our HTML page microservice. Well, we also, now you see this connection here between Elasticsearch and Kibana. Well, we can do visualizations of the data in Kibana so that this workstation can work with the data raw, or look at nice little dashboards of bar graphs and pie charts and horizontal graphs and line graphs of traffic crawling and collapsing, all kinds of different visualizations. Let's slow down though. First, I need to go to my code base and let me show you some of these things I'm talking about. Make sure I share my screen. So in Postman, again, I have my local Elasticsearch Kubernetes Docker container image. Forget Kubernetes. I saw it here. I didn't mean to say that. Now this is my Elasticsearch, and it's responding to the GET. And if I check Kibana, it's also up, and I get the HTML page. Now these are running in the background here. You can see them here and answering my calls. And we also have them up as a web page, and then Elastic has this incredible ecosystem. Now let me show you something here. Inside of stack management, there's a couple of things I want to highlight. There are our index patterns, and we're going to create an index pattern, and that index pattern is going to be the JSON strings and integers and different fields, right? The pattern of that index for show IP interface brief or OSPF neighbors or whatever, as well as the timestamp. Now here is the node pipeline, and we can create a pipeline here through the GUI, but I'm hoping to create it through Postman. Now let me show you here in Postman. I haven't done this yet, but in my Elasticsearch, my cloud, I have my pipeline post. And this is what it looks like. We're going to have a post. Now, this is going to be my local 9200, I believe. And I'm going to create an ingest pipeline known as Merlin pipeline that has a description of timestamp and a processor, a server-side processor. As the JSON comes in, set the field of source ingest timestamp with a value of the variable ingest timestamp. All right, so that's our pipeline. we're going to create the Merlin pipeline, the ingest pipeline with the timestamping. There's a few other things we're going to have to do to massage Elasticsearch. First, I like to update my fields limit. Oh, where's my body here? Bring it up to 10,000 fields. We have a lot of fields in the network, and I'm not sure the default's are a little low for some of our commands. As well as nest limit. Bring that up to, say 50. Now, I'm hoping that I just do it under settings like this. That's how I did it in the cloud. Now, this is important for each index. I'm going to have something like, devnet 9k sandbox underscore IP interface brief, or whatever learned interfaces, whatever I'm doing, whatever my index is going to be for the data. Well, I want to set the default pipeline to that Merlin pipeline that I set up here, so that as things come into this index, they are pushed to pipeline. Now, here's a good document before I move along about ingest pipelines, right? Incoming documents, which in our case is JavaScript object notation. You can see you can make it all lowercase or dissect it, or different regex type things. In our case, we're timestamping it, adding a timestamp. Now there's some prerequisites here, right? We have to have an ingest node to handle the pipeline processing. Oh, I see. For ingest pipelines, your cluster must have at least one node with an ingest role. So this might not work. I might need to set up this ingest role. All right. Well, let's take a look here. Let's see if it responds to the command to set up the ingest pipeline. Oh, hang on. HTTP. I see. I copied that from my cloud. Let's see. What is it going to say here? Okay, it acknowledged it. Well, that's great. So now I have that pipeline. And now let's update our field limits, maybe. Oh, HTTPS again. It's going to catch me. Hang on. All right, acknowledge true. Let's get rid of the S here. And so we have our settings and everything set up. Our next step is going to be to create an index. And let me. Now you notice I had a slight adjustment here. Let me make sure that is saved. So we want to update the settings of this learned interface index, devnet sandbox nexus 9k learned interface. And our index default pipeline is the Merlin pipeline. So let's send that. And it's acknowledged. And now we have this index. Now let me see something here. Let me just add a new request. I don't know. I have an intuition here. Get learned interface. And now I believe if I go to HTTP localhost 9200 slash devnet sandbox learned interface and do a get here, I should have an index. And I do. And we can see that it has a default pipeline. Isn't that incredible? So now it's ready for JavaScript. So if I quickly show you what my intention is, I'm not going to do this live. I'm not that ambitious. But in this learned interface Merlin PyATS job here, I'm going to put the comment in, right? So if learned interface is not none, here I'm going to say, send JSON to Elasticsearch index. And then right here in the code, that's where I'm going to send it along to the index. Now, as an anchor point, I've done this with the cloud, and this is available for you in Merlin, not as a container yet, but this is with the cloud ID, and here's the idea here if I go find it. There is a template that I'm going to need, Elastic Standards, that standardizes the JSON to be lowercase and normalized input to be indexed. Elasticsearch has specific rules about the JSON that's coming in. So I'm going to have to run it through a template. And then I'm going to index the data, something like this. So I'm going to try to refactor my own code from the cloud Elasticsearch to my local Elasticsearch. And let's see if we can start ingesting data. Thank you. Stay tuned. All right, our base image is rebuilt, and it's got the Elasticsearch libraries now that we need. So let's build first. Docker compose, build no cache, and let's build learned interface. All right, let's give it a go. Let's run learned interface by bringing this up. All right, let's maximize the screen, and I gotta be honest, I've had a couple of little false starts, but I'll show you, I think if this works, what all the pieces that were required to make it work. I did my last attempt, I was getting like denials. It wasn't letting me put the data in, but I'm talking to something. So let's see what happens this time. I believe this one is going to work. I think I've ironed it out. No, not yet. 400 status. Security minimal setup to enable security. All right. So that little yellow error message led me on about a 2-3 hour development rabbit hole. But I have it figured out. Now, I'm not going to be able to explain all of this in this video, but let me show you the situation. That error message doesn't allow anonymous posts of JSON into the, right? And it's suggesting that we haven't secured our environment, and we should. So I found there is some stuff on elastic.co, but this article by Mandeep on Medium, setting up Elasticsearch and Kibana on Docker with XPack security enabled, it takes you by the hand and walks you through everything you need to do. So now you won't have to do this. I'm going to package everything up in this release. But now that you can see, let me see if it prompts us or if it's going to cache my credentials. So now I actually have to log in, which is a good thing, into localhost 9200. See, it's prompting now, which is good. So now I have to sign in, same as localhost 9300. I have to log in. So I have these credential file that I'm going to include in the repository. It's nothing sensitive, right? It's the DevNet sandbox, and I want you to use this. So I'm going to package all of this stuff up. Same as this Postman. Let's see here. If I do the Postman without authentication, well, now I get, right, it doesn't work. So now I need to set up basic auth with the username Elastic and this password. And let's see if that works now. See, now it works. Pretty incredible. So let's go ahead and try to get our JSON in. I'm not quite ready to do that yet, but what we're going to do is we're going to add that authorization to here. Let me do it here and make this basic auth Elastic and then that password and save it. And then for each of these requests, I'm going to inherit from the parent. Let me inherit from parent for all of these. And now, so we're going to do our pipeline, create our ingest pipeline, make sure that's still good. All right. And then our index here, we're going to create that learned interface index. Okay, that's created. We're going to update our field limit and inherit from parent. And we're going to update our nested limit, inherit from parent. Let me make sure I'm saving all of these. And get learned interface. Again, it needs auth now. Okay. All right. So I'm going to have to. The only thing I'm missing is in my Elastic setup how to add username and password to what I want to pass to the API. Once I update that, I'm going to run the code for the first time live with you, and hopefully we'll index and ingest the data. Just a couple of minutes of research. I'll be right back. Well, let's see. I think I have the secret sauce to do this. Let's run the code. Let's do it. So we're going to go in here, and what we're going to say is Docker compose, and let's build it first. No cache. And this is learned interface. I don't believe I made any changes, but just in case. And now let's bring it up. And let's watch and see what happens. I know it was knocking on the door trying to post the JSON, but it wasn't, right? There was no username set up. Now that I've set up all that infrastructure, let's see, am I going to index and ingest the data into Elastic? Well, everything passed. Everything passed. And I got, here's my put. Wow. There's my put, a status 201. Okay, let's go see. Is it there? Right? We're going to take that string and jump into Postman. And this is learned interface. So if I do this now, you can see here that learned interface has, it's all there. Learned interface. And this is, now we have to be very careful and pay close attention. This is the schema of this index. See, it's not data in here, it's the type of long or keyword, or there's probably Boolean, an integer. All right, so now let's make a new request. And this is going to be get learned interface index. We're going to get that full index. And the auth is going to inherit. Okay, all right, now let's save that and let's run it. And let's see what we get. Address not found. Oh, this is a local host. Aha, let me save that. Don't panic. And there it is. There is our indexed. Now, I'm really interested to see, does it have a timestamp in here as part of the pipeline? Now, what is this? Well, this is the PyATS learn interface. That's why I'm just amazed that it's working as an ingested indexed Elasticsearch. So somewhere in here, if we look close, there's loopback 1. There's going to be all these interfaces. One of these keys should be our ingested timestamp, which is going to be important later in Kibana when we want to visualize, as well as a timestamp for when this occurred. It's got to be in here. I suppose I could just search, but this is exciting. I'm building up a little bit of drama here. It's got to be in here somewhere. Hey, check it out. There it is. The ingested time. And look at all this great information, right? The ingest time. That's a server-side pipeline. That's nowhere in any of my Python or any of my code. That's the result of when we created this index, setting the index default, right? The index default pipeline to Merlin pipeline, and then our pipeline is the timestamp stuff. But I gotta just let me fix this. Really, really happy with this. Now we're ready to move on. And now I can rerun this container every time, and it will keep a logged history. So this is that UUID, the universal identifier, unique universal identifier in hex that I generate. I believe if I strip this away, no. I guess I just get the schema and that individual index. And there's the UUID. Number of shards, 1. And this is that UUID. So if I go to this, yeah, I see. All right. I thought there was a way, I'll have to go back to some of my earlier videos to see the index. I think maybe if I do index like this, oh, get, I can post into that index. I'll have to figure it out. I have to go back to my my other videos. Anyway, it's all working. This is incredible. So now, if I go into my right here, I can put that as a URL as well in my browser. So if I come back here and go back to this, I should be able to visit this URL and get the JSON. Right there, it all is. Which means I can reference this externally. Now, the important thing is we can run searches against this. And now in Elastic, I can build on this in Elastic. Now I'm going to stop there, and I'll make a separate Elastic video that will build on this for the sake of keeping them nice and tight. But so far, what did we accomplish here? We've accomplished on the whiteboard everything up to this Kibana. We just have not tapped into Elasticsearch from Kibana. But our ingest pipeline with our timestamp, our indexes and timestamp, we're able to access it from our computer in Elasticsearch. And that's just one function, right? I've started with learn interfaces. I'm going to rerun it a few times, make some changes, run some packets through it, see if I can get some counters to change. But I'm going to focus on a new video that's on the visualization in Kibana. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you're learning stuff. And stay safe. Thank you.